the live stream tab, or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Dr. Charles Ross, and I'll be your host for Your Personal Finance for the next hour or so. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. And of course, all the topics and opinions of the show hosts and guests are not the WCEG Network. And thank you for your support. For those of you who followed the show for a while, you know, one of my favorite topics to talk about is real estate. Years ago, I was a big stock investor, but now I've joined, drank the Kool-Aid maybe. And
You've come over to the bright side.
Well, you know, I don't like to disparage one type of investment because everybody has their thing. Yep. But I think, and I'm getting more into my thing. Let me introduce my guest. This is my good friend, Bill Omi, and I'm going to share my screen and kind of give you some background on this wonderful guy and what he does. He is a real estate investor. And let me go back up here and start this from the beginning. And this is the group that Bill is a part of, and I am a part of, a real estate investors network. Look at all those people. There's what, 400 or 500 people in that group, and that's just in Atlanta, I think, or maybe one of the conventions. And but Bill Omi, like you owe me rent. That's always funny that a real estate guy has a name like Omi. He's a 20-year real estate investor, lifetime student, and value creation expert. And he'll share more about what that means. There's his phone number if you want to get in touch with him. He was working a 60-hour per week job, got laid off after 23 years, started reading books and taking courses, and voila, after 4 years, he was financially independent at the age of 44. And his favorite quote is, "You don't know what you don't know." Well,
that's it. I'm telling you guys.
So Bill, Bill, about we met a couple of years ago, and I'm from Missouri, the show me state. Well, I'm not really from Missouri. I'm from New York, but you have to show me. So Bill, we talked, and Bill showed me the properties that he was doing, because a lot of people talk to talk. They're more interested in educating versus doing. What Bill is doing. He owns 45 properties here in the Atlanta area, and has been, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year he generates. And of course, I'm feeling some of his stealing some of his thunder, and so successfully now owns or operates an animal rescue farm? Would you call it?
Yeah. My wife and I both are founders of a animal rescue charity.
Right.
And by the way, it's Circle of Friends Animal Society, COFAS, COFAS.org. And our van just blew up, the one that transports the animals to adoption days. So if you go on our website and you can spare $1, we need some money for a new van. That's it, the big van.
That's what happens when you become financially independent. You could do what you want to do every day.
We work with the charity. That's it.
Every morning when he gets up, but I'm sure he's always looking for good deals. And when he finds them, he jumps all over it. I just want to get some things out of the way, Bill, and just ask some questions, because a lot of people who are tentative with this pandemic and all the things that are happening right now in the economy, they're real afraid. So just why invest in real estate? What's the reason? What's the benefits of investing in real estate for folks who haven't really thought about it too much?
Well, and we have some slides we'll go over and how this works. But a thing about real estate that's different than any other asset class is that you can buy real estate at a discount. You can buy real estate. Let's say a house is worth $100,000 today. You can buy it for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 and create wealth instantly.
Wow.
You can't do that with any other. Think about it. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, Bitcoin, gold. None of those assets allow you to buy them at a discount and create wealth on day one. That's the amazing thing about real estate, right? And then with real estate, you can generate cash flow. And we're talking about sizable cash flow, that the assets will then produce your income. So now you take yourself out of the working equation. Right now, 95, 96, 98% of the people, the only way they're bringing income into their lives is their own labor. And what wealthy people do is they accumulate assets and the assets do the work. That's why 90% of the millionaires in the country have done it through real estate investing. When you start realizing that, it's amazing.
And that's why I tell people, if you prick most of the millionaires and billionaires, they usually have two things in their portfolio: real estate and a business. They have other stuff, but they mainly, have real estate and a business that they're operating, or real estate could be their business, so that's important. So that's a great thing. So, we're going to talk a little bit more how to get rich in real estate. So let's go through some of these slides here and some of the things so you'll probably cover some of the questions that I have so people can get a better idea that you need to at least give this some serious thought. All right. So explain this slide, Bill.
Well, guys, most of you have seen Robert Kiyosaki's book, right? The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So there's 4 ways that people have money coming into their lives. Okay. The first way, everybody knows it. You go to school, you study hard, you get good grades, and you're an employee. Okay, that's great. So in this condition, you work for money. Okay, you trade time for money. Well, if you want more money, what do you have to do? You have to do more work. But there's other things associated with being an employee that most people don't realize until they get a little bit older. If you click through, we'll start seeing those. Yeah, you have the worst tax situation of any quadrant. The government actually penalizes you for being an employee. I know it's hard to believe, but they provide huge tax incentives on the other side of the equation. But as an employee, you get taxed the most. And also, as an employee, automation is replacing your job. So every company out there is taking software, robots, artificial intelligence, and they're making themselves more efficient, and they're getting rid of people. Okay? So that's the employee. So people say, okay, I don't want to be an employee, then I want to be self-employed. Okay, congratulations. Self-employed is the hardest working quadrant. This is where if you don't keep working, the money doesn't keep coming in. I mean, you folks that are self-employed, everybody knows it. And this is the group that's really being hit hard from the coronavirus, right? Self-employed, small businesses. So self-employed, again, if you stop working, the money stops coming in. Now let's go on the right-hand side. Let's look at business ownership. So a business ownership leverages workers and systems. So the folks on the left-hand side, the employees work for the business owner, and the government gives the business owner huge tax write-offs. Unbelievable incentive to be a business owner. And automation now is making you business owners wealthy. So you're using the tools of technology to make more money, right? Because robots never take a sick day. They never have a bad attitude, whatever. Then finally, the quadrant that is the ultimate goal is actually the investor quadrant. This is where you have money strictly making money for you. And I ask people, I say, okay, what industry in the United States, they own all the biggest buildings downtown, they don't make anything. They just take your money and they create lots more money out of it. So what industry does that? And they are the highest profitable industry in the world. And if they go broke, the government will always bail them out. It's the banks, right? That's the investor class. And you're going to find out that through real estate, you can actually be a bank. So it's a lot of fun. And the purpose of this slide is just to show folks the left-hand side, if you want to be an employee or self-employed, that's fine. That's 95% of the population. There's plenty of education to do that. But shows like this one is where you're going to get the education on the right-hand side to learn about business ownership and investing.
Well, one of the things, as I'm in education, and one of the things that we learn is that historically, education has been designed to make you employees. They've been designed to make you, it's almost like a factory. They're trying to make loyal employees that you want a job. And obviously what we're teaching is not what's taught in public schools or even in colleges. Now that's kind of changing a little bit, but not enough where you're seeing this onslaught. And then we're talking about this pandemic, the COVID relief thing, whatever they're calling it. And, they're dickering over, well, should we give them $1,400, but guess what? How much the corporations are getting? Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Billions, man.
And we don't talk about that. And that's because the business owners have the ears of the politicians. And so guess what? Who are they going to listen to? We as normal citizens are sitting there trying to figure out, well, why can I get $1,400 versus $600? And the business owners say, I want 10 million or 20 million, and they got lobbies to do that. So I just want to put that in perspective, that the public school education, including college, is designed to make you an employee, because back way long when they had the robber barons and all that kind of stuff, they needed people to run their factories. Now, guess what? The factory's in China somewhere now. So good luck with that, right?
This is true.
All right. So what else we got up here?
So the point is that on the left-hand side, the employees and self-employed, basically that's a life of default. Meaning if you don't do something different, you will default as to being an employee or self-employed. But if you go to the next column over, that's where you actually lead a life of design. This is where self-actualization, this is where you get to do the things you want to do with life because of the system, because of the business ownership, because of passive income, because of leverage, right? Both technology and people. So it's not right or wrong. It's just, where do you want to operate? That's really what the question comes down to.
And I guess the bigger picture, I'm sure you're going to get into this, is that when all this happened, to give people control over your 401ks and all that, and that you need $10 million or some ridiculous amount to retire. Well, guess what? With real estate, that's not the case. And I'm sure, Bill, you're going to talk a little bit about it.
We got a great slide on that. Yes.
All right,
it's
good.
A lot of fun. Okay. So let's talk just real quick, mechanics of real estate. There's actually 4 levels of real estate investing. First level is wholesaling. And wholesaling, you've seen it probably on TV, where you get a property under contract. You never buy it. You're just moving a contract from you to the end buyer. And that you can make maybe $3,000 to $5,000 on a deal, and it takes about 30 days. Now, no money, no credit, okay, because wholesaling is strictly moving paper. So the second level of real estate investing is actually fixing and flipping. And fixing and flipping now gets a little bit riskier because, yep, you got to put some money in, you got to take some risk, you got to create some value. And if you do it right, maybe $30,000 to $50,000 for a deal, and they take about 6 months. Now, can you lose money in fixing and flipping? Yes, yes. Oh, let me nod up and down. If you don't know what you're doing, you can lose money. I know they don't show that on TV, but there is risk associated with it. So that's fixing and flipping. The third level is actually buy and hold. Okay, so at level 3, things start getting magical because now you're accumulating wealth rather than doing transactions. So what do you make on a buy and hold? Depends on how long you hold it and what type of property, but on a little house, 30, maybe up to 150,000, depending on how long you hold it. And you might hold it 5 years, you might hold it for generations, okay? And then the fourth level is actually money lending. So think about the banks. I'm not talking about saving up 100 grand and lending it out at 6%. I'm talking about creating 100 grand that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. Actually creating money and then lending it out. So your return on investment is actually infinite. And how long are you going to lend it out? Depends on the deal. It could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 30 years. Okay, so those are the 4 levels. Now, why does this matter? This matters as you click through a little more because the first 2 levels are going to be earned income and transactional. Okay, what does that mean? Earned income being it's a job. Okay, transactional meaning you do it and you get paid. You do it and you get paid. If you don't do it, you don't get paid. Okay, but levels 3 and 4 are different. Levels 3 and 4 are actually wealth creation and passive income. Real estate provides something that most other asset classes can't provide you with, which is the wealth creation and the passive income. So again, if you buy a property at a discount, and in my world, it's little houses. So you're looking for a house that's worth maybe 70 grand and you want to buy it for 20 or 30,000. So 70 minus 20, just by buying that house, you're now $50,000 wealthier. And my thing to the audience is always, how long do you have to work a job to become $50,000 wealthier? Some people forever. But in real estate, you can do it instantly. Okay, that's again why real estate is so powerful. And you can do it with a little apartment building. Let's say you do it from, I don't know, a 10-unit apartment building that's worth 500,000 and you buy it for 200,000 and you create 300 grand at a closing table. Right? The scalability is unbelievable. So wealth creation and passive income, remember the passive income is somebody's living in that place. So in real estate, you really go from having a job, and you can have a job in real estate, to financial independence where the money's coming in without you doing the work. That's what happens, where it really starts to get nice. And that means you're going to go from, if you click through, from the big checks, right? Because everybody knows the big checks and they're fun, but the real value is in the little checks. Okay. So if you have money coming in every month, and you're going to hear me talk about one word that is the word, and that is cash flow, baby. Okay. Cash flow. That is the magical part of real estate. And that's why 90% of the millionaires do it through real estate investing. Okay. So I'm going to give you a 2-step process for financial freedom. It's only 2 steps. Number 1, buy cash flowing assets at a huge discount. Create tax-free wealth instantly. Okay. And here's the other thing. Remember I talked tax-free? This when the tax code is written for wealthy people. When you buy that apartment building and you just become $300,000 richer on day 1, what's the tax rate on that 300 grand that you just created out of thin air? 0. Because we don't tax wealth in the United States. It's an income tax. See, wealthy people, they don't create income and then buy their wealth. They create wealth and skip the income part. And then you bypass the whole tax thing. You can build a multi-million-dollar portfolio. If you don't sell it, you'll never pay taxes on it, and your kids will inherit it tax-free. It's one of the best tax strategies there is. Just a little something. And then the second thing is maximize cash flow. So if you have these assets, how are you going to use them? Are they strictly rentals, maybe long-term rentals, maybe short-term rentals, other ways to juice cash flow? And you'll learn. If you're working with a real estate group, you'll learn different ways. Maybe the property is going to be used for student housing or transitional housing. Okay, whatever you want to do that increases cash flow. So it's that simple, guys. Buy assets at a discount, create wealth instantly, and just maximize cash flow. It's that simple. Why don't they teach this in school? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that, it's what I just said. They're trying to create employees, not employers, or financial independence. Because if that was the case, then no one would go to work. Then where would these? Who's going to work? Well, Amazon in the factories, or not factories, but in the warehouses, right?
Right. Well, we have a joke in our group. It's that jobs are for people that don't invest in real estate. That's what we have a T-shirt like that. Okay. Now this is an interesting thing because Charles says, "Hey, what about retirement in real estate?" Okay, so let's talk about this because this is huge. Okay, if you work a job, which 95% of the people do, how much can you sell your job for after 40 years? 0. Right? You haven't built anything. You've just worked and built somebody else's business. Second thing, can you leave your job to your family? Let's say you're working your job and something happens to you and you die. Is it something that your family can inherit and keep the money coming in? No, because the job dies when you die, right? So let's change this a little bit. Instead of working a job, let's do this. Let's start acquiring wealth. Remember, wealth, not income. So you acquire 4 houses a year for 5 years. And guys, it ain't that hard. The first ones are the hardest. So if you're buying them at a discount, what happens? If you're buying them at a discount, click through. Tell my story. So you're going to create your wealth tax-free on day 1. Like I said, maybe $50,000 per house. Okay, and then you're going to create value for others because what? People need shelter. They need good housing. And by the way, right now, there is a huge national shortage of reasonably priced houses. It's never been worse than it's been right now. So if you want to be in the housing business, it's the time to be in it. Now, how much are 20 free and clear $70,000 houses worth? What's your portfolio worth after that 4 years, 5 years? About $1.4 million. Okay. Now, $1.4 million, but really what's the most important? Not the assets, it's the cash flow. So how much money will you have every month in retirement to spend on groceries, on travel, on whatever you want? Well, it's pretty easy. Once the houses are paid off, $500 a month times 20, that's $10,000 a month. But think about if you were doing what Wall Street's teaching you to do, which is to try to save $1.4 million. What happens if you live too long under Wall Street's plan? What will happen to your nest egg? It'll be depleted. You'll be broke. But if you generate cash flow rather than assets, it goes on forever. You can leave it to the next generation.
Bill, okay? explain cash flow for us. With that, what does that mean?
Think of cash flow. Cash flow is just the money coming in from your assets. So in this case, it would be rent. Okay, so every month somebody's putting postal money orders or transfers or checks, and you're accumulating those, and those go into the bank. So it's money spun off by the assets. Okay. That's the cash flow.
Are we talking about cash flow meaning net cash flow, meaning after expenses?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it that way. Mm-hmm. My goal, though, is to generate as much gross cash flow as possible. Okay. And then you work to get the highest net. Because remember, you can never get more than your gross. Right. So you always want to maximize gross cash flow. And then if you minimize expenses and taxes, your net goes up.
Got it.
Okay. So money coming in. And we're talking about tenants. People are always worried, oh, tenants, hard time with tenants. I've heard hard words. Your tenants are your customers. If you just create value for those people, it's amazing how little problems you'll have. And I'll give you an example of value. So when you rent a house, I don't rent to people that want to rent. I only rent to people that want to own. So now they have skin in the game, right? They want to end up owning a house, and they don't have any other way to do it because 80% of the US population cannot get a mortgage, cannot go into Citibank or Wells Fargo and get a mortgage. So as an investor, your ability to create value is almost unlimited. It's just crazy, right? And my thing is, will there be less or more housing demand in the future? More, right? People are streaming into this country. People need places to live. There's a shortage of housing. I think I read, like, in the state of Georgia, the federal government says there's a shortage of 173,000 units.
Wow.
Builders can't afford to build affordable housing, right? People are living 2 or 3 families in a house. So you, as an investor, have a tremendous opportunity to help society and make a lot of money. How do we know this works, guys? This is old school. It's been going on for hundreds of years. This isn't fancy. This is like 101. But there's a reason it works. It's 101 is because it works. That's why people do it. Okay, so real quick with retirement. This is important for you to understand the difference. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. And I don't say it's a retirement plan. I say it's a life plan. So first things first, do you set yourself up as an asset-based retirement account? That's what you're taught to do by your companies, by Wall Street, by the financial community. Or do you set yourself up as a cash flow-based retirement? This is what wealthy people do. So the first thing is you have to save. If you're in an asset base, you got to save, you got to scrimp, you got to do without, you got to eat rice and beans and rice, right? And you got to do it for years and years and years and years. Because actually, if you run the numbers, for you to make $10,000 a month, you're going to need $3.46 million in your retirement accounts. Wow. How's that working for everybody? It's like almost impossible. But on the cash flow side, you can create wealth and cash flow by just buying a property. So there's not this like save for 30 years thing. It's really learn to create value and then execute. So that's the saving. The second thing about it is you got to start like 30 years ago under the old model, right? And by the way, if you're 40 or 50 and you don't have a retirement plan with $1 million in it, it's too late. There's just not enough time to do the compounding interest thing. right? And if the market crashes, well, I might 8 or 10 years where before your money comes back. But we're just showing you an example where if you were to learn to buy apartment buildings or trailer parks or storage units or something like that, 3 to 5 years you can be done. Why? Because we talked about it. Because under the old plan, you were buying the assets at 100 cents on the dollar. You're buying them at full price and then hoping and praying that they go up in value. You have no control over that. But what wealthy people do is they buy the assets at a discount. They create their wealth instantly. There's no variable there. And then you've got to be old to retire. Whereas if you're doing cash flow, as soon as you get enough cash flow to pay your bills, you're done. So if you're 33 and you get it done, congratulations. If you're 45, if you get it done, congratulations. Under the old way, you got to save like until you're too old to enjoy it. Here's an important thing though. If you do the old way with Wall Street, by the way, it's because Wall Street makes all the money on this deal. If you save and save and save and you have $3 million, which nobody has $3 million, let's say you have $1 million somehow. The day you retire, what starts happening to your nest egg? It starts depleting because you're eating it, you're living on it. But on the cash flow base, you never touch the assets. You only eat the cash flow, right? You don't kill the chicken, you eat the eggs. So you can live to be 185 years old and you'll always have enough money. Here's the other thing about the present way. You've got to go to work every day and earn the money. You got to go and get your salary and pay your taxes and do your 401k. And under the wealth creation, you don't even need money to do real estate investing. You can actually buy assets that spin off cash flow without any of your own money. I mean, it's just too good to be true. You got to learn how to do it. Okay, there's some skills in there. So do you want to do what you're told to do right now, which is Wall Street controls your success, right? The market goes up, you're yay, the market goes down. Don't click anymore though. There's a punchline on this next thing, okay? Either Wall Street controls you or you control you. That's really it. It's not good or bad. It's just two different ways of looking at things. Okay, now here's a cool question. How much is that little house worth? Okay, make the next click. I'll give you a hint. There's the big house, 1,000 square feet, brick house, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Guys, all in America, these houses are everywhere, especially in the Southeast and the Midwest. So click through it now, and then we're going to give you a hint. Click one more time. There you go. So we paid 28 grand for it. It appraises for 80, let's say, and it rents for 650 a month. So in most people's world, realtors, most financial planners, they'll say that house is worth 79.9. But it's not. Because how are we going to base the value of our assets? Not on the asset price, but on the cash flow, right? It's on the cash flow, baby. So let's go through it and let's show the magic of this. So how much is the house worth? It's actually worth $624,000. So wait a minute, Bill. This doesn't work out. Yes, it does. Stick with me. Because of this. Click. There you go. Because if you had $624,000 in cash, if you hit the lottery and you put it in the bank, you would make 1%. That's the money you would have available to spend without hitting your principal. That's about
on a good day right now. 1%.
That's on a good day, right? I mean, some people are trying to find 1%, right? So that means you'd have about $520 a month to buy groceries. But that house, renting at $650 a month, net of everything, taxes, insurance, upkeep, whatever, that house will yield $520 a month. So which is easier to amass? $624,000 in cash or buying a little house for 28 grand and getting the same cash flow? See, you got to think of what's important. You can't eat assets, but you can live off cash flow. So it gets even better though, because not only is that house worth $624,000, but click. The $624,000, if you had cash right now, would be depreciating. it's actually losing value. And it's so bad because the Federal Reserve has lowered the interest rates below the rate of inflation. So you're actually losing like 2 or 3% a year on your purchasing power of your money. That's unheard of. That's never happened in the history of mankind, because in a normal environment, a normal economy, it will never happen. People won't lend their money out below the rate of inflation. But when you have the government putting their thumb on the scale, the savers are being ripped off and the money's being fed to the speculators. But the house, the asset investment, will go up according to the inflation, because assets go up, dollars go down when there's inflation. And one more thing, click forward, you can't buy cash at a discount. You had to work to get that $624,000. You couldn't buy it for $100,000, but you can buy the assets at a huge discount. See, again, it's the cash flow based model versus the savings based model. So hopefully it gives you guys something different to think about. This is why real estate is so incredibly powerful, right? Compared to just working and trying to save the money. So the real question is, which way do you want to go? So we're talking about retirement real estate. So here's a couple of little houses, and we'll see how much they're worth. There's the house we just talked about. It rents for $650. It's worth $624,000 in cash flow. Here's another house. This one here, it rents for $695 a month. We only paid $19,500 for it. So it's worth $667,000 in cash flow. And then finally, and this is a gold mine, okay, mobile homes. We paid $7,000 for this mobile home. And at the rent that it rents for, it's producing as much cash flow as $571,000 in the bank.
Wow.
Anybody here think there's a mobile home out there worth $571,000? They're all over the place. But we don't know what we don't know, right? So it's a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at it. Okay, so I don't know. I threw a couple of deals up, our group in Atlanta. This is Debbie and Jim. They're in our group. They bought a little house and they did a fix and flip. Remember we were talking about the 4 levels of real estate investing? So they did this house, $37,500. They put some money into it and they sold it 6 months later. They made $57,000. And that's a good payday, right? But it's still transactional. You got to keep doing it. But I thought I'd throw it up and just show you what's possible.
Yeah. And as you said, that's a job. I mean,
that's a job, right?
After you finish that one, you got to do another one.
Right. And it's risky. People don't realize on fixing and flipping. You know what your biggest risk in fixing and flipping is, Charles?
What?
Contractors.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If you get a bad contractor, you could lose a fortune, right? If you don't know how to handle the relationship between contractors and owners.
Well, people just have to think about, if they own a home, the contractors they had to work with to just do stuff on their house.
Yeah.
There's something about that artisan group that is just, interesting. I don't know what it is. Electricians, plumbers, sheetrock, bricklayers. They're just specialty people. I'm not saying that to disparage them, but they just operate on a different level. It's really
well. It's creating value for them, right? Yeah. It's making sure that they're getting value out of the deal. If not, if you're just trying to get the most work out of somebody and then they don't do the work, you've got a problem. So that's contractors. So the next deal that we were showing this is just a little buy and hold. So Joseph, he's actually a tennis pro in our community. Oh. And he did a couple of wholesale deals and he parlayed that into that little rental house. I mean, that is the cutest house. Guys, here's the other thing about little houses that's amazing. It doesn't have to be a house that you want to live in, right? You may say, well, that's too small of a house. But for thousands of families, they're like, oh my God, that's a beautiful house, right? That's much better than living in an apartment. So in this case, he's getting $600 a month on that cute little house, and he's making 24% a year on his money. But remember, he bought it at a discount. So he creates, every time he buys one of those little houses, he creates $30,000 to $40,000 worth of wealth in his portfolio just by buying the house, right? And he's 28 or 30 years old. Okay, here's another way to create value in real estate. if you don't pay your taxes, so people buy houses and they can't pay their property taxes for whatever reason, eventually the county will auction off the houses to investors like you and me, because they need their tax revenue, right? For the students, for the school teachers, for the police and firemen. In this case, Jim and Debbie, they fell upon a tax deed here that they bought for $13,000, and they sold it a few months later and they made 45 grand on a tax deed. Because remember, it's finding properties at a discount. You're working with people that need to sell, not necessarily want to sell. My company, see that little turquoise house? Notice the little houses? We bought that at a county courthouse for $1,500.
Wow.
And when we took possession, and we have to wait a year in Georgia, we took possession of a $59,000 house. And that house is rented right now for $500 a month. So my point is this: people worry that it's like, oh, I need money to do real estate investing. It's not a money issue. It's knowledge and relationships. And that's really where it's at.
Talk about, I'm not going to say which city we were looking at this. We were looking at tax deeds in a small city in Georgia, and the COVID thing kind of messed it up. But here's the deal, like Bill was sharing, you buy a property for the back taxes, right? And you get control of the property. You have to wait a year, but because of Bill's such a smart guy, he said, well, guess what? You don't have to wait a year. You go to the guy and say, hey, listen, you're not going to you're going to have to, get up this property. Why don't I give you a couple of dollars and I'll take possession of it now?
Yeah, that's a strategy. You can actually buy out the right of redemption.
Yeah.
Right. And that just accelerates the process.
Right. So those are some of the things you learn, and when you're doing this, to try to get control of the property as soon as possible, and not having to wait a year. But in Georgia, you got to wait a year. That's a good thing.
And every state is different. Here's a couple of people in my group that Lisa and Jackie, they did a wholesale deal. So they were brand new in real estate, and they found this property. It was a probate deal. Okay. And they did a wholesale deal, and they made $12,599.28 in 30 days. But you know what? They didn't have any money out of their pocket to do this deal. No credit, no money, knowledge and relationships. And they earned $12,500.
Explain the no money out of pocket. So it's a probate deal, means somebody died. I'm assuming the homeowner died.
Right.
And it was in his estate. So explain kind of just cursory what happened.
So they went to the family. They had found the family that was going to inherit the property, and they said, would you like to sell the property? And the family was 2 or 3 people scattered around the United States. And this is typical. It might not have been their exact story, but this is how probates tend to work. And the people are like, yeah, we don't want the house. I mean, we're sorry mom died and everything, but we're 1,000 miles away and we have bills to pay. And so they got the property under contract. Let's say they got it under contract for $100,000. Okay. And because they have relationships, they know there's buyers out there, whether they're fix and flip people or landlords. They found somebody who would pay them $112,599.28. More than that because of closing costs. So they got it under contract, and then they went to the seller and they said, would you like to buy our contract for this house? Or they went to the buyer and they said, would you like to buy? And the guy said, well, yeah, that's a great deal. Great. Let's go to a closing table. Everybody signs. We get paid our $12,599.28. The people that inherited the house get their money quickly, right? Because they wanted to pay their bills. Mm-hmm. And some landlord got himself a really good house to then rent out to folks for the future, right? So everybody's a winner.
That's a sweet deal.
Yep. Here's an example. This is a lot of fun. When we talk about controlling a property, so that house, which is probably about $220,000 house, these folks, these young kids here, Ulysses and Ivan Perez, they're in our group. They actually got the control of that house for $1. And they structured a deal with the seller so that the first day they earned, or click through and I'll show you the box. So they earned $15,000 on that deal within 30 days, and they're going to earn $43,000 within 3 years. Now remember, they control that property for $1. So I don't know, what's that return? 43,000 on $1 invested. I think that's like 4 million % return on investment. But the point is, the person who had the house is thrilled. Everybody's happy. And these young kids with no money and no credit basically did a real estate deal. See? And so I you know, people always, I hear, well, I don't have any money and I have a credit. I'm like, yeah, so what? That's not, you know, that's not what it takes. What it takes is knowledge and relationships. That's really the point. So there was a great deal within our group. Now, one last story, and this is about people, right? We talk real estate's all about people, and it really is. It's people who have property problems. So Alvin Lamb is a great friend of mine, and he's about 28 years old now, but he's been with our group for 3 years. And I said, Alvin, what was your situation when you started at 25? So click through and we'll show what his story is. Okay, so he rented a house. He had a car loan. He didn't have any equity. He has $50,000 in student loans. He worked at Chipotle. He was a Chipotle burrito roller. Okay. He used to work from 7 a.m. to 11:30 at night. He didn't know anything about real estate. Now, he went and got his bachelor's degree in college and didn't know anything about real estate. He didn't know anyone in real estate, so he didn't have any relationships. And he was making $9 an hour and he was broke. So how many people do you out there know of people like that, especially now with this virus, what's happened to people's jobs? There's millions of people. They're trying to reinvent themselves. They did everything they were supposed to do, and through no fault of their own, they got to start over. So Alvin said, okay, I'm going to learn this real estate stuff. I'm not kidding. And so now after 3 years, Alvin owns his own house. If you click through, I'll tell you the rest of his story. His car is paid off. His student loans are paid off. He now is retired. Remember I talked about passive income? 3 years, Alvin is retired and he's traveling around the country helping other people do this. He has 85 rental units, right? And now he works with a community of investors. So he has people around him that are smarter than he is. And because his apartment buildings rent out, his apartment buildings pay him $14,000 a month. And he's a millionaire because he bought the properties at a discount. Okay. Now, look, I'm going to tell you, results are not typical. This guy is serious, right? But here's my point. What job could you have and in 3 years be done? It doesn't exist in the job world, but it does exist in real estate investing and business ownership. So here's some of his apartment buildings, because Alvin he's got them all around the country, right? 85 units, partnerships in 6 states. I said, Alvin, is there anything else I can tell the audience about your situation? Click through. He said, you realize I was broke when I got started. I didn't have any money. I did this being in debt in 3 years. And I'm like, wow. I got to tell your story, Alvin. That's a great story. So again, guys, this is the sort of thing, it's possible. Everybody will work at their own pace, but it's not possible in the job world. It's impossible. So hopefully you guys, maybe it'll stretch and make you think a little bit. So I threw one last slide up. You got the big checks, you got the little checks. Anybody here still think real estate investing is boring? So hopefully you guys will take something from this, get educated, start hanging out with people that are doing this, and, you know, build your financial freedom.
And that's what it's all about, you know. And I think that people have to understand that, you know, you have to want this bad enough. I mean, and the one thing you didn't talk about, Bill, that I want you to kind of just elaborate a little more before we go, is the why. You know, the why I think is so important. I know for me it was, and you talk about that. Explain what you mean by the why.
This is a personal development thing, guys. If you focus on the end goal, and this is right out of Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The last one is begin with the end in mind. So right now, you guys are all taking time and watching this video. Why are you here? What is it that is your purpose in life that you've got to accomplish while you're on this planet? And it could be anything. It could be, look, I want to help my kids. I want to help my church. I want to build hospitals in third world countries. We have a guy in our group has a charity that builds water wells in impoverished villages overseas. So his company or his charity goes in and he takes a village where these poor people are drinking like, dirty water out of a river and getting sick. And they'll drop a well 300 feet into the ground. They got a special pump with a solar panel. And now the whole village has fresh water. It changes everything. We're so lucky in America because we just turn the spigot on and clean water comes out, right? And we're like, oh yeah, everybody. No. Huge portions of the world don't have that. And so that's one of his things. He's like, look, I want to get so that people have clean water. My world is animal rescue. So my wife and I have always been big, taking in animals, helping animals. And when the real estate started taking off, we got to buy a farm. We have an 11-acre, we call it the sanctuary. And the charity volunteers use that farm to take care of animals while they get them ready for adoption, right? So if we didn't have real estate, if we were working crappy jobs, we couldn't afford that. But because of the real estate, it's like, you know what? We don't have to wait until we die to make some sort of impact on the system. Let's do this. And our charity has found homes for over 7,200 animals in our little 3-county area.
Wow.
I mean, so that's 7,200 animals that would have, terrible lives, abuse, starvation. And not only that, but we helped out the local veterinarians because now we have budgets for spay and neuters, animals that have to get emergency surgery. Our charity pays for it. So people that can't afford it, it's taken care of. And it just helps the whole community. So focus on your why, whatever it is. That's up to you. But I think it was in the 18th century, was it Henry David Thoreau? He said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with a song still in them. If you think about that, I know it's a little corny, but it's true. So many people never achieve their life's purpose. And it's one, because they don't think about what it is and then plan to get there. They just sort of stumble through life and then, maybe they do, maybe they don't. So
yeah.
If
well, thank
you
you
think
so much,
about that.
Bill. I mean, just a wealth of knowledge. And like I said, I'll share your stuff as you get over. But thank you so much, Bill, for coming on. And we'll be talking soon.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Take care, Bill. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, he is, the guru when it comes to, investing. So, I think that's the important thing. So, all right, Bill, we'll see you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So, the thing you have to always remember is that what is your why? Why are you doing, what you're doing? For me and my wife, the reason why we got into real estate was because we wanted to have a different life. I'm, getting close to retirement, and we've crafted a plan, that we can execute over the next 3 or 4 years. This year, we'll probably buy another 2 properties. We already own 2. And so over the next 6 months, 9 months before the end of the year, buy 2 or 3 properties. Now, here's the thing about us is that, I want to kind of just recap some things to make sure people understand why I invest in real estate. And the reason is obviously is cash flow. Is that, you're going to get the cash flow, you're going to get the tax breaks, you're going to get the appreciation, the asset going from $1 to $2, and you're building wealth and that equity. In other words, how much you bought it for and what it's worth. So if you bought something for $50,000, it's now worth $100. That difference is your net worth. And one of the things that I'm disappointed in the media, and you probably see it all the time online, they'll talk about an athlete or an entertainer or business person's net worth or net worth, they'll say. And I find that misleading. And let me tell you why. Net worth, in other words, your net worth is the assets you own, what your liabilities are, what you borrowed to get that asset, the difference between what the property or what the asset is worth and what you borrowed to pay for it is your net worth. So let's say, for example, that you have $1 million in assets, but you have $500,000 in liabilities, loans and debt and that kind of thing. If you sold that asset, follow me here. If you sold that asset and paid off the debt, you'd have $500,000. 1 million minus 500,000, that's $500,000. Okay. So when they say somebody's net worth is X, here's the problem with that. How do you know what they owe on those assets that they have? And it's really misleading. And I think they do it so people will click through it and say, okay, how much is Dwayne Wade worth? How much is Michael Jordan worth, or whatever the case would be? And it's very misleading. So that's a challenge. So I wanted to kind of share that. The real con, or perhaps thing that is a disadvantage when it comes to real estate, the transaction costs are a little bit higher. The risk is a little bit higher. But look what you have to gain. If you do it right, then you won't have it. But now some people have gone broke investing in real estate. People have gone broke investing in stocks and things like that and other type of businesses. It's just, what do you see as your value? And as Bill was sharing, he shared about, the 401k and 403bs that people have and how they can use those assets. They have to have $1 million to generate. Now you're going to need a lot more than that, because right now, if you were to, get $1 million and invest it in a bank and get an interest rate, you might get 1%. So that means on $1 million, 1% would be, 10% would be 100,000, 1% would be $10,000. You follow me? So you need maybe 100 million. Oh, no, I'm exaggerating, but the point is that with real estate, that's not the case, as we've already seen. So that's the big thing to look at. So here's some of my suggestions, okay? And I'm gonna share you some of the things that my wife and I do before we go. We got about 8 minutes left. First of all, study. You have to study and learn about investing. And I'll share, more about that if you're interested, to give you a way to reach out. Pick a strategy. Bill talked about a couple of strategies. There's a bunch of other strategies when it comes to real estate. You have to pick one. For example, my wife and I have decided to invest in small properties. Bill's small properties are 50, 70, 60, 70,000. Mine are more like 30 to 40 or 50,000. Okay. All right. And there's a bunch of properties like that in certain cities, not only just in Georgia, but around the country. So you have to pick a strategy. Mine is buy and hold. Buy property, hold on to it. The third thing is pick a market. Where are you going to do this? There are people that I know who are investors who can't invest in the city that they live in. So for example, New York City, very expensive, very hard to get into real estate there because the properties are so expensive. So you have to invest out of state. So you got to pick a market that's going to fit your strategy. Pick your investment criteria. Okay, that means that when you buy a property, what are you looking for? Now, with our strategy is that we're buying properties 30 to 50,000. We want to have cash flow of anywhere from 15 to 20%. Okay, that means that we're getting 15% off that asset. And I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, build a team. You're going to need a real estate agent. You're going to need probably a lawyer. You're going to need a CPA or a tax person that knows taxes. Okay. You're not going to need an appraiser because the companies hire those, but those are the three ones. You need an agent, a CPA, and a lawyer to help you understand some of the things that might come up, okay? And then financing. Where are you going to get your financing from? We found a couple of banks that will lend us on our small properties with anywhere from 15 to 20% down. So think about this, okay? I buy a property for $30,000. I have to put 15% down. What's that? $4,500? Then I can rent that property out for $500 or $600 a month. Guess what? I've made my money back that I put down in the first year. Everything after that is gravy. Let that sink in for a minute. And then you have to find cash for your down payment and a creative plan. In other words, where are you going to get the money for your down payment? You could go to your 401k. You can get private investors. You could go to friends and relatives to borrow money from them. And then create a plan to find deals. In other words, how are you going to find these properties? Okay. Now, Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com are great places. You can put in your criteria in those search engines and find all kinds of properties depending on what your criteria is. So that's important. So I think those are the things you do. Now, I want to share my screen for a minute before we get over here. Let me see if I can find it. There it goes. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. So check this out. All right, let's see. Let's go here first, okay? So here it is. These are some properties that we're looking at, right? We're getting ready to pull a trigger on sometime this year. And we got 5 minutes. I'm just going to say A, B, C, D. Here are the properties. Here you see the price. Here's what I'll offer. Here's the kind of property, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, monthly rent, annual rent, property taxes, insurance, vacancy, 10% of the rent of the property for vacancy and maintenance and things like that. And then net operating income. That's the difference between your rent and your expenses. Okay, because I got to look at what we're going to put in our pocket. Cap rate. That's the rate of return that you're getting on the investment. Look at this, almost 16%. That's based on the price of the property, the 32.9 on this one. But look here, if I buy it based on the offer price, guess what? My return goes up to almost 21%. Now this column right here, that's Section 8. Right now, I'm only buying Section 8 properties. Why? What's going to happen over the next when they lift the moratorium on evictions? A bunch of folks going to get evicted. Well, with Section 8, guess what? You get your money right there every month. Every month, first of the money that month, that money comes in. How sweet is that? Okay. So we've narrowed down our properties, and here's perhaps what we might be looking at. Okay. I just want to kind of focus on here. So on this line right here, if we buy these 3 properties for $103,000, that's almost $2,000 a month in rent. Okay, almost $24,000 in annual rent. Our net operating income, 18.3. If I buy them based on the offering price of 126 for all 3, it'll be 14%. But if I buy them on my offer price, in other words, what I actually want to pay for it, it goes up to 18%. And down here is a little bit of the mechanics of down payment, what the mortgage is going to be. But look here at this little box right here, down at the bottom. Okay, $24,700 is the net that I'm going to get every year. How many times would you want to do that? Now, I'm not going to say it's easy. The biggest issue for my wife and I when we decided to buy was buying that first one. Once you buy the first one and you get past that, guess what? You're ready to rock and roll. Then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's really sweet. And guess what? I'm not doing anything. I'm getting that money every month. That money's coming into our checking account every month. Okay, we just sold one of our primary residents, okay, and moved into a new one, and we rented that one out. Okay, we're netting out $500 or $600 a month. Okay, all right. So my point is that you have to decide. You have to have a plan on how you're going to get out of this life alive. How you're going to do it. And I think the old way of putting money in a 401k, a 403b, like Bill said, if you're 40 and you don't have a couple of $1 million in the bank right now, what are you going to do? And I think what's happening right now in America, that you have so many people who are working beyond 70, not because they want to, because they have to. And that's pretty sad that you work all this life. We went to college, you did everything you're supposed to do. And you said at 65, I'll be able to retire. And guess what? That's not happening for a lot of people. And that's unfortunate. But that's why we have this show. That's why the WCEG Network exists, to share this kind of information. All you got to do is make a decision to send me an email, charlesross@outlook.com. Real easy, charlesross@outlook. Or you give me a call at 404-272-4633, and I'll share more about the strategies on how we can do that. And it's exciting. Just an exciting time for us to be right now. There's going to be some great opportunities coming around this year. Unfortunately, we have a pandemic. We didn't create it, but there's going to be some opportunities. And I think you want to be one of the ones that take advantage of that. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and listening and watching. And you have any questions for future shows, please hit me up at charlesross@outlook.com or give me a call at 404-272-4633. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.